I'm speaking with Mike Burke, CEO of Sitka Gold. It's a company focused in the Yukon, but Sitka actually has projects in the Southwest, in the US, and in other areas of Canada as well. It's a company that I've actually sort of followed on and off for the last few years. It's in the Tombstone Gold Belt of the Yukon, where there's some other companies that I focus on, including Banyan Gold and Snowline Gold. But the reason why I invited Mike on today to do an interview is that the Sitka story has really taken on, like another level here in 2024. It seems like the results of the drill program here, this year are absolutely stellar. And just the amount of, visible gold they're seeing in the drill core is really eye-popping. So Mike, how are you doing here?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for coming on Goldfinger Capital today. Can you just give us a short introduction to the Sitka Gold story?
Yeah, just briefly, I'm the VP of Corporate Development. I haven't fired Corco yet. He's our
Uh,
CEO. Not a problem. Cor's doing a great job, and I can't imagine being better at that than he is. But yeah, I'm VP Corporate Development. I'm a geologist as my background too. So just a quick introduction to Sitka Gold. Our flagship property, as you mentioned, is the RC Gold Project. Fold. We're well kind of rounded for commodities and locations in North America in kind of first order jurisdictions. So we have the Alpha Gold Project. That's a Carlin type discovery that we've made in the Cortez Hills Trend in Nevada. We're about 40 kilometers south of Cortez Hills. That was a geological concept. We've been doing small drill programs there over the last kind of 4 or 5 years, proving that the deposits to the north exists on our project, and we have done that, and we've intersected gold mineralization.
your flagship project is in the Tombstone Gold Belt of the Yukon, and you put out results in October, 678 meters of 1.04 grams per ton gold from surface at Blackjack. That's an exceptional intercept. I mean, it's kind of mind blowing actually to have 678 meters of gold. The continuity in that hole where, the grades average a gram, but they vary from maybe a little bit near a half gram all the way up to almost 20 grams per ton. Really quite exceptional. Uh, what had you drill such a great hole?
We've been chasing the Blackjack deposit since we put out that initial resource in January of 2023. The deposit was still wide open, so we've continued to drill over the last couple of seasons, following the deposit to the north, to the south, and at depth. And we found, in especially this year, as we drilled to the south and to depth, the deposit was really getting stronger. We're seeing more alteration. We're seeing, the odd higher grade vein that we intersected at depth. So we've gotten down to the point where we're getting to the depth limits of a potential open pit. So you got to make the decision, well, is this deposit strong enough at depth that it might support an underground type operation? Because you obviously need higher grades for that, and we felt it did from what we saw. So we stepped back, and that most recent hole that you mentioned, 68, was designed to kind of drill down the plunge of the deposit. It was an angle that we had to do to get down to depth and see, to trace and determine the continuity of this deposit as it goes down to depth. And so we were able to go down to 678 meters, which is a couple hundred meters deeper than any other intersection that we've had. The bottom 93 meters graded 2.57 grams per ton. So we're confident that we're in the realm that those type of grades are going to support an underground style operation. Because I mean, if we're drilling to those kind of depths and hitting half to 1 gram material that's typical in these intrusion related systems, or has been considered typical until our Blackjack discovery and Snowline Gold's Valley discovery. These types of grades weren't really conceived before, or thought, to be potentially high grades that you could support a multifaceted operation with open pit and underground. So that's what we're kind of chasing there. So yeah, we're pretty excited about the strength that we're seeing down at depth and the amount of gold, and yeah, the alteration that we see. So yeah, we haven't it's a little atypical of an intrusion related system because we're getting down to some pretty deep depths, and it's strengthening at depth. So we're excited about that potential we see down there.
So the grades are strengthening down plunge, and it seems like there's an intrusion that's plunging to the southeast. So yeah, it's deep. You're getting up to 600 or so meters there. But do you continue to test this down plunge? I mean, as long as you're seeing the grades go up above 2 or 3 grams, then why not see how far it goes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be part of our plan for 2025. We've done a bit more additional drilling on the Blackjack, so we have four, as of right now, we have four drill holes pending on the Blackjack. So we'll compile all that data. We'll start looking at our plans for next year. And obviously, we expect that some deeper drilling on Blackjack will be part of our plans. But also, we've acquired in the summer additional ground, and we have a lot of other targets to evaluate as well.
So how many, I assume that you're about to wrap up for the season, or you have, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
okay. Uh, how many holes are pending assays at this point?
8 drill holes. So four on the Blackjack, two on the Ross Gobble. That's intrusion on the ground that we acquired in the summer. It's 5 kilometers south of the Blackjack deposit. It was previous. It's never been diamond drilled. The only other drilling was back in 1995. So we followed up on that, put two initial diamond drill holes into there. We intersected visible gold. We did a press release on that, and now we've also done 2 holes on the Pukelman intrusion. That's about 2 kilometers south of the Blackjack deposit. Those two drill holes also intersected visible gold, just a single occurrence in each hole. Down deeper again, that Pukelman intrusion has never seen diamond drilling. It had a couple reverse circulation holes back in 1992. So these are two targets on the new ground that we acquired that we felt deserved a couple initial drill holes this season, and that'll again help us for planning of next year where we're going to go, because we have a couple other targets on that newly acquired ground that have seen a bit more drilling. We didn't want to go back into those right away and just twin a drill hole and produce a drill result for the market. We felt that we'd be better off for our planning for next year, as well as our shareholders, to show that these other targets that have received less work historically, we felt had really good potential for a brand new discovery. So those 2 holes on each of those, the Rosgobble and two on the Pukelman, those are in the pipeline as well for getting assayed.
How do you intersect visible gold in seemingly every single hole? At the Rosgobble, I see you have VG in the first two core holes you drilled there, and then at the other one, VG in the first two core holes drilled there too. Is there just gold everywhere here?
Well, it appears so. I mean, these systems are known to have visible gold in them, right? They're these tiny little veins that you add them up over if you were to assay the individual little vein that's typically less than a centimeter thick, it would probably run better than an ounce per ton. And so you don't always see visible gold in there. There's obviously gold that's no CM gold in there. but you do find visible gold, and they find them at Valley Gold, for instance. They see visible gold. Banyan Gold sees visible gold. Victoria Gold, the Eagle deposit, it had visible gold in it, and also all these areas are have placer gold. So there's, the Clear Creek area where our project is, where we're drilling. That's a well-known placer gold district. It's seen placer mining for well over 100 years. There's still active placer mining right around where we are. So these systems have visible gold, and that's why we're finding it. So again, what's interesting about our project, we control what's called the Clear Creek intrusive complex. It's a cluster of these Tombstone age intrusions that are all known to have gold mineralization, and they're in a pretty confined area. You know, the core of it is 3 by 5 kilometers, and we have, 8 intrusions poking up, and every one of those intrusions has known gold mineralization. They've seen various bits of exploration work over the years. But this, you know how exploration goes, it goes in phases. The first real exploration there was in the late 80s after the discovery of the Fort Knox mine in Alaska and recognition of this particular suite of intrusions hosting gold mineralization. So Robert Friedland actually and his private company came over from Alaska, looked in the Yukon, made some discoveries, did some work, including work in the Clear Creek area, Dublin Gulch, which turned into the Eagle Gold Mine. And so, yeah, that was the first phase of exploration. There's been subsequent ones, and the most recent one has been the most fruitful, the one since 2020 when the Eagle mine went into production and people started paying more attention to these deposits or potential deposits in the Yukon because they now were in the realm of being economic. So deserved more attention.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, what does it seem like? You clearly have a target, rich environment. You have a multitude of target, intrusions to continue testing. Eh, what's the secret sauce for finding these intrusions in the Tombstone Gold Belt? I mean, is it just as simple as like you go out prospecting and you see stockwork quartz veining at surface? You're like, oh, look, it's there. Or do you need to use something, like a ZTEM survey to see deep in the earth?
There's certainly the best method of finding things. These things are boots on the ground, and a lot of that groundwork has been done historically. I can go back to Hugh Bostock in the 1950s when they first put out a map and identified this suite of intrusions and noted in his bulletin that, there's placer gold in this area and it's likely coming from these intrusions. So, historically, the Geological Survey of Canada, then the Yukon Geological Survey has done boots on the ground mapping to identify these things. Then it is just that the prospecting, the soil sampling, stream sediment sampling to, determine that they're gold bearing. And then beyond that, certainly if you don't see one, if you're in prospective ground, but there's no obvious intrusion, we have an area like that on our property we call the Alp area, where there's good soil geochemistry with gold, bismuth, tellurium, all the pathfinders you expect to find with these intrusions, but no intrusion map. So that's where geophysics, VTEM, or MAG surveys might help you find a buried target. But part of the secret sauce, too, is something that was observed fairly early on. I worked for the Yukon Geological Survey back in the 90s and early 2000s with Craig Hart, who's the independent chair over at Snowline. Craig and I worked together. And some of the initial work that was done in the Clear Creek area, and we noticed in other intrusion related systems, were the presence of these Lamprophere dikes. And so they're kind of mantle derived intrusives that show that there's kind of a deep, tap or conduit into the mantle. And, some of the work that Craig is continuing to do suggests that these gold bearing fluids are are fairly deeply derived. So you need a combination of that nice host rock. Those Tombstone sweet intrusions are probably coming up along that same long-lived structural corridor. And then, there's another system that's bringing up the gold, and that's what we're kind of seeing. Clear Creek area is well known to have plenty of lampreyfers in it. We can map those out, and that helps us in our targeting and other kind of gold-bearing intrusions where they're finding them. They find lampreyfers as well. So it's an evolving story, but yeah, maybe there's another piece of the secret sauce there we haven't quite figured out. But it's as we do more work on these, we're always learning, so we're always adapting. But that's some kind of general observations.
Okay. And then, let's talk about money. So, how much cash does the company have in the treasury right now? How much does it cost you per meter to drill? And what do you think your budget is going to be for the 2025 season?
Yeah, so we're very lucky. We're well financed. We did a couple financings just late in the season here, and we're seeing warrants getting exercised because our share price has done quite well lately. So we're just around $11 million. About 8 million of that is hard dollars. So we're well financed for next year. Our drilling costs are about $400 a meter, and we sometimes use a helicopter because there's areas that we want to get into, and before we invest in the infrastructure to put roads on a hillside or a new area, we choose to use the helicopter. But because we're road accessible, all the support for helicopter drilling is by road. So our drilling costs are around $400 a meter. We expect, with say a $11 million budget next year and 3 or 4 drills, would bring that drilling cost down, because typically we've used 1 to 2 drills, and that's a little more expensive than 3 to 4. So, our budget for next year will be, around that 10 to $12 million mark, what we have, and we can bring that cost down a drilling. So we're looking at a pretty substantial, say 20 to 30,000 meter drill program. We have a lot of drill targets. As I mentioned, we acquired additional ground, the southern part of the Clear Creek intrusive complex. There's 4 solid targets on there, including the Pukaman and Rosgobble intrusions that we drilled. And then, of course, we have a bunch of targets on the ground that we have the Blackjack to expand that, the Eiger deposit that we haven't done follow-up drilling on, saddle area that intervenes there. So we're a very scalable project. We have a lot of targets in a nice kind of confined area. We can support those all by road and from the same camp. So our costs will be nice and low.
I'm not going to ask you about when we're going to get assays because it's not a fair question. And I know we'll get assays as soon as they're ready to be reported. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of news over the coming months. But final question for you, Mike, is for the Yukon more broadly, what's the number one thing that could happen in terms of like a catalyst that would be very beneficial for gold explorers, in this territory?
I think, the biggest catalyst for gold explorers is the drill bit. That's been the catalyst for Sitka Gold. So what is really important is to make, solid discoveries. Sitka Gold, we're a pretty technical group. We're geologists for the most part, and we love to make discoveries. That's the whole reason for our being. So we think in the case of us or anybody else, you get that initial few drill holes into a new target area that show the potential to become a deposit, and you're off to the races. So it's really critical to be able to get the funds to be able to drill. But there's also that in the background, we're still doing boots on the ground. We have a large, 430 square kilometer property. We're doing additional soil sampling, geology, prospecting. So, that really leads to the drill targeting, and we can't forget how important that is to get out and really have a good look and find a solid drill target before you spend the money to drill it. Sometimes companies are forced to drill a little too soon, in my opinion. So I think doing that solid geological work and then making that discovery with the drill bit, that's the best way to drive this business.
Very good. Mike, thank you very much for your time here on this big election day in the US, and I look forward to speaking again.
Absolutely, Robert. Good to chat, and we'll see you down in Vancouver.
Thank you.